Hi, so by the name of this video, it's obviously going to be something uncomfortable to talk about, but I am putting it together for the efficiency of sharing a bulk of information, more probably directed to shelters and veterinarians than 250 characters into a little text box, and so a little video link might be the way to go. So I'm going to try and be as efficient and as quick as possible, and I'm also going to be as meticulous with detail as possible. On October 17th, a little after dusk, the dogs were outside and I heard a whole bunch of barking, and I had looked out the window and I saw a pickup truck with its headlights glaring towards the house. And it seemed like they were just turning around in the driveway, which does happen somewhat frequently, and I didn't think anything really of it until 15-20 minutes later. I had one of the dogs that was frantically pawing at the back door, and when I let them in, only two of them came back, and Rupert, our little Beagle, did not. And so this was very strange. This was the first time that he has gone missing in any capacity where he didn't return home. And I obviously the following morning called the shelters and the police to see if anyone had reported seeing a dog out of place. And nobody knew or saw anything or heard of anything, so I just started walking and pacing the road. And the strange thing is that this is a dog that barks. He howls. He is a boisterous beagle, and he went from barking around a car pulling down the driveway thinking that his barking stopped because the truck had left, to just being completely silent. And so by October 23rd, I started knocking on neighbors' doors and contacting the neighbors for what I did have available. And I found out that one of the campgrounds that is close to where we live had seen Rupert the day after the night he went missing. So on Sunday, October 18th, she had seen him being walked on a leash by one of her campers. And she then told me that I needed to call the campground across the river from where we were to see if they had seen anything, which felt strange. So I had called that campground to see if they had seen this gentleman with our dog on a leash, and they didn't know what I was talking about. And then I had called back to the first campground to be redirected back to the dog officer for the town, who didn't know anything or didn't hear any reports of anything, and told me he didn't know anything about a camper with a dog not known to them. And so I then called back again, and I was told that he was getting in the way, and that this was one of her regular campers, and that he wouldn't have taken Rupert, but that she speculated that he gave the dog back to her daughter, and then her daughter let Rupert go. And so I then tried to ask information about, well, where did she let him go at? She then ended up telling me that her daughter wasn't available, and when I asked for potential leads and contact information for who was in the campground that day, I was told by her that she was uncomfortable sharing that information because these were her long-term campers in the area, but she would have a conversation with like some sort of authority figure. And so I had called the police, and I asked for an officer to come and talk and get some leads on where I could call next to follow up on who may have seen this individual with our dog and where he might be. I was then told that the best they could do was label Rupert as lost, and that there was nothing that could be done because I did not get the license plate of the pickup truck in the driveway that night, and that if I could figure out the license plate for it, maybe something could be done. So what I ended up doing was calling another police station and seeing how they potentially handle theft of dogs. And I was told that they have a specific person in charge of this type of thing, and they would handle it by following up and going to talk about who was seen, who saw what, names, contact information. And that he recommended that I escalate the concern within the first police precinct. And so I pushed back a little bit by calling back, and somebody told me that there was absolutely something that could be done, but there's a hierarchy on how it should be done, so they forwarded it to the right person. Several weeks after that, I finally got told that because of COVID, they are not investigating any leads on theft at this time due to resource allotments that are available, and that they are encouraging people to utilize community resources for theft and petty crime. And when trying to ask what that exactly is, I was told that that's something that they were unsure of, which felt like a dead-end runaround. And so I have been calling and emailing the local shelters and veterinarians on a somewhat regular basis, a few times a week, every week, for the last several weeks. And everyone is aware and they know that I'm looking for Rupert, but the reality of the situation is that if somebody found Rupert and was looking to get him back home, they would have, in my opinion, reached out to veterinarians and shelter organizations to try and find a home, or posted something on Facebook, or posted something somewhere where by word of mouth and degree of separation would have been able to bring him home at this point. And in reality, he could be anywhere, which is why I'm putting this together to try and share to a much wider area of contacts. And this feels a lot like a needle in the haystack type of a situation, but again, I'm hoping that by being thorough and detailed with what he looks like and his age and his temperament and some just little things to know about him, that maybe we can get him home. I do think that he potentially might have shown up at a veterinarian's office at this point. He's due for a 3 years rabies booster. He does have a little bit of a tracheal collapse issue that can be a little alarming at times depending on what he has been eating or how he is maintaining exercise. So I should say that for a Beagle, Rupert is relatively small. He's like a 13-inch Beagle. He is post-break and tricolored. The only thing that really changes on him is his summer to winter coat patterns that really visually looks slightly different in the winter time. But the big things to identify with him are he has a solid black cape down his shoulder midline over his rump that goes down to it like fades into a red-brown down his thighs. He has a white coat band over the back of his neck, and the end third of his tail is white. He's like brown dappled all down his chest and his front 2 legs, and then his back 2 legs both have white kneecaps. So the black from his back will fade into white by mid-thigh. And then if you're looking at him from a top-down situation, again, it's like he's almost solid black. The thing to really look is he's got an extended black patch behind his right ear that does extend a little bit far out, that is asymmetrical to the other side. By looking at his face, you can see that he doesn't have quite the true boxy feel. The big distinguishing characteristic around his face is he's got a white line that's relatively thin. It's probably, I would say, maybe an inch at most, that outlines around the front of his lips and around his nose and then up the ridge of his nose. The white line never exceeds between his eyes, so it never goes up and over his forehead into the top of his head. It's all relatively thin, and this is relatively symmetrical to what his facial features look like. So I'm going to share some videos from him out in the yard from this past summer and spring and end of winter last year. But he's a pretty chill dog. He's going to be in work and public environments with a relatively calm temperament, and he's real laid back and chill in the environments that he knows to be, and then when he's running amok out in the yard with his sisters, that's what he does. And then he's and then, as you'll probably see, he's super laid back and laying in his dog bed while writing during the day. And
Hey Rupert, how's that hole coming? Are you in the Indian Ocean yet? Rupert! Rupert! Hey! Rupert!
So if I could just end on a personal note with Rupert is, he is obviously a dog that works, and he also serves a purpose around the house, and he is a loved dog. He has a life vest when we go swimming on vacation, and he's got a harness for whatever. He's got a work. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think the thing that just feels this feels just unnecessarily personal, and unless you know where our house is, you would not know where our house is. So that's what also makes this feel like a weird violation of who would know to come to our house, who would know that Rupert is here, who would take somebody else's dog for what purpose, and I don't know where to, I think they go here, but as I was just talking about a couple of months ago, about watching your husband lose his best friend, to take the time that he grieved that to open himself up to another dog, it's sad, and it is. I just don't understand. Yeah, I just don't understand who would think this is okay. And again, I come back to, I know the one time where I found a dog while driving in the middle of the night. We took this dog home. We called the shelters while they were closed in the middle of the night. We left voicemails, and that owner came out and picked up their dog within 6 hours of making the connections for that. And whomever took Rupert is clearly not looking for us and his family, and I just don't get it. So if anyone can help or just be aware or look back in your records of, has a 3-year-old small neutered male beagle shown up in your office since the end of October, please write to, I'm going to put an email address here, anything that you might know, or any leads, or anything about anything that you think might be helpful. I would appreciate the help. And maybe I am getting emotional. And if there's been something in here that is not clear, or you think that would be helpful for more information and I just haven't thought about it, let me know, and I will post things in the description down below. So thank you, and